All right, great. Let's start. Hi everybody, and good evening, and thank you for joining this session. My name is Michiel van der Eecken, and I'm technical specialist cloud endpoint at Microsoft. And today I will be talking about a modern way of working with continuous access evaluation, Windows 365, and Windows Autopilot. And I want to construct a secure way of providing a device or services or applications to your end user. And we'll see the result of this at the end of this session. But first off, let's start off with continuous access evaluation. And continuous access evaluation is, well, it's not new anymore, but I think it's recently got out of preview. It's a layer or an extra option added to conditional access. And why did we add this extra feature to conditional access? Well, let's first see how conditional access works. And I think everybody knows this way of working. The user logs in and requests a policy check from Azure AD, and Azure AD responds with an access token. And you can use this access token to log into any resource provider available. And this token is valid for 1 hour. So once you logged in, you got your policy check, you're good to go, and you can log into, for instance, the web app or the Office applications. So this provides a problem. For instance, when a user is terminated, it can take up to 1 hour to block the user's access. When he is up to no good, you cannot block this user immediately. Also, if a session is revoked through the Endpoint Manager portal, well, also or to the Azure AD portal, also this can take up to 1 hour to revoke access. But more importantly, I think, and this is a great example as well, when a user moves out of the corporate network and switches to mobile data, for instance, he can still log on to the applications while with conditional access. When you read the policy, he should not be able to do so. So this is where continuous access evaluation comes into play. It revokes in real near time user session based on whether the account is disabled, whether the password is changed, or like I said before, when a user is no longer in the trusted network. And how does this exactly work? Well, first of all, we still have the same way of working where the user still requests the Azure AD for an access token. And the access token has been granted by Azure Active Directory, for instance, and you move outside of the corporate network, for instance, and you want to log into your resource provider. Well, Azure Active Directory provides the resource provider with extra information where he rechecks the policy and then he can reject the token to log in to his application or to the resource provider. And this all happens in real near time. So this is great, right? You can revoke a session immediately when you want it. What continuous access evaluation does not is it does not introduce new policies which are available for you. You still have the same conditional access policies which you already installed or which you can use. And you don't need any extra license for continuous access evaluation. Also in the past, you'll see it immediately. It was a separate blade, while now it's integrated in the continuous conditional access portal. So let me first off, let me show you where we can activate this continuous access evaluation. And I will just switch the screen which I'm sharing, just going to my portal here. 1 second. Let me see what I've got here. It should be this one. There we go. All right, and we are in the Azure portal, of course, and we go to Azure Active Directory. And here we can go through security. All right. And as you can see here, we had a separate blade for continuous access evaluation, but recently it got moved to being a part of conditional access. So if you had any policies, they will be migrated to this blade, where you can see it will be called conditional access policy created from CIA settings. So I've created one to show you an example where this is available for you. So we can go ahead and I'm just going to show my policy here. So I've included some conditions I did for all cloud apps. I wanted to block access. And here you can see in the session part, we can add continuous access evaluation. By default, it will be disabled, but you can do strict enforcement, and this will result in something I'll show you in a second. So it's this easy to activate. So do keep in mind, if you think this is necessary for your environment, it's as easy as that. So let me jump back into the presentation again and show you what exactly this does to get a better view of the feature. So let me search my presentation again. There we go. It should be sharing. I hope everybody can see it. There we are. And let's continue with the session. So first off, I want to show you the example without continuous access evaluation. So on the right side, you obviously see my smartphone. I'm using the Outlook web application with my mobile data, which is it's an allowed network. And as you can see, I can move freely around, but I want to switch to my Wi-Fi connection. And for some reason, this is blocked to use the application. So now I'm on Wi-Fi and not anymore on mobile data. We switch again. And even though the conditional access policy is in place, you can see that we still are able to use our Outlook application in the web portal. So what happens if we activate continuous access evaluation right here? So as you can see, we're again on the mobile data part, and we want to switch again to our not trusted network, which is the Wi-Fi network, and disable the mobile data. And now we're going to click again in our web application, and you'll see that immediately my access will be blocked. So this is the main difference, and this can cause a big change in your organization, obviously, to immediately secure, to revoke the session, or to not allow the user to your applications. So as easy as it is, this was a part of continuous access evaluation. Are there any questions so far? Please post them in the chat. I think Wim and Tim will follow it for me. So yeah, just please shoot. If you have any questions, also in the meantime, just post them in chat or come off mute and let me know. No problem. So we'll be using this as well in our demo later on, the continuous access evaluation part of conditional access. So the second part, what we were talking about, I think it was Christian, right? That was already been talking about Windows 365 in this meeting, or not? No response. All right. So I will be talking about Windows 365 here and what exactly it is. I hope some of you already tested it, have some of you already seen it. So for those who do not know what Windows 365 is, it's your cloud PC, which is available, which makes you allow to use a full computer in the cloud. You can take your content wherever you go. You can have scalable storage and compute options, but most importantly, it can be secure. For instance, you leave no data on the device itself, and you can use conditional access as we've shown before, and all those other features which are available through the Microsoft Azure AD. Also, it allows you to buy cheaper hardware and provides stronger capabilities with cloud PCs, where you don't need to buy the strong hardware anymore. You can just assign a license. But without further ado, that was a little bit of sales talk. I wanted to show you the technical and license requirements for Windows 365. So what is very important, at first, you will need, two licenses. Of course, you need the Windows 365 license, but also an E3 or E5 license, or licenses that allow you to use the Intune portal. When you have those two, you're good to go as an end user. But very importantly, and some of you might not know this, these are very important steps in your setup. We will require hybrid identity and hybrid machines for Windows 365 to work at this point. I know we should have Azure AD only in place as well, but this should be coming up in the near future, I guess. I'm not quite sure of the date so far. But at start, we will need an Azure subscription where we can host an Azure Virtual Network. And on this Azure Virtual Network, the cloud PCs will end up with and will be added and will be available for the end user. The Azure Virtual Network has to have a line of sight to the main controller. So we will be adding the Windows 365 Cloud PC in a regular base on a regular style to an Active Directory server. So the Azure Virtual Network needs a line of sight to the domain control. If you don't have a domain control in the cloud so far, well, you need obviously a VPN connection or express routes to the Azure environment. And of course, as we see here, we see hybrid, which means that the machine and user identity is synced to Azure AD and that we can use it right there. We can select a gallery image or you bring your own image in Azure. We can do the management with the Endpoint Manager portal. And of course, it also supports the role-based access control, which we all know, of course. So do keep this in mind before you get started. At this point, we still only have the hybrid Azure AD join available for Windows 365. So as said before, we need a line of sight to a domain controller. The virtual network must be able to resolve an on-premise Active Directory records. And for those who don't know how to do this, well, you see here that you can add a custom DNS server on your VNet in Azure. And this way you make sure that the Active Directory records will be resolved. If you have any costs where you don't know where they originate from, do keep in mind that we'll have a small bandwidth cost. As you can see, it's not a lot. But if you cannot find out where the costs are coming from, it's probably because we're using your network bandwidth. We have some product SKUs available for Windows 365, and I'm quite sure we'll be missing one here and one here. There are new SKUs available. There are not yet graphical SKUs available. Microsoft is working on that as we speak, but at this stage, it's quite hard to provide enough graphical power to foresee every Windows 365 user with graphical power on their cloud PC. But this will make a nice use case, I think. For instance, if you buy a lightweight laptop and you have developers or people who draw with AutoCAD, they can just use the Windows 365 Cloud PC for that. But this also will come, I think, in the near future. So let's go over the deployment process first. As said before, we require the Azure subscription where we set the Azure VNet. We have to configure hybrid Azure AD join. You will have to assign a Windows 365 license in the Endpoint Manager portal. I'm not going to show that part because obviously it's like adding an E3 or E5 license to a user. It's no rocket science. We can associate Azure resources, and we will have to have the required credentials to add our cloud PCs to an Active Directory domain. So the first step to deploy the Windows 365 Cloud PC is create an on-premise connection. And I think the name on-premise connection is a bit a bad word choice because, of course, if you have an Active Directory server running in Azure, well, you don't need any connection to on-premise or your data center, obviously. But if you don't, you will require a connection to an on-premise Active Directory server. We will select a virtual network in Azure. We will create a connection with that, and we'll fill in our Active Directory domain service required information. So let me show that to you in a small video here. That makes it more easy to follow. So we were in the Endpoint Manager portal, and we go to the Windows 365 blade, and there you see the on-premise network connection. We can continue by creating a connection, clicking on that button there, and you see a similar view of the Azure portal where you can select a name for your connection. Select the subscription where your VNet is hosted, the resource group where your VNet is in. Select the virtual network, and the last step is the subnet. And this is, by the way, the enterprise setup. And then we will require, as said before, the Active Directory credentials. We'll set the domain name for our environment. Organizational unit is optional. And then you fill in the username that is allowed to add Windows 365 Cloud PCs to a domain or to this domain. Confirm the password. And there we go. We click on next and we click review plus create. So this is the first step already for the Windows 365 deployment. And if you see here, we continue with the checks that we have here, and this is called the Watchdog Service. And the Watchdog service is quite nice because in my case, I missed some messages when something got wrong in the endpoint manager portal. Some responses were nice to have. And with the Watchdog service, this is available in your Windows 365 deployment. For instance, you can see that the Azure AD sync is in place. If something goes wrong there, you immediately see what's wrong. You see the Active Directory domain join part, where a dummy Windows 365 Cloud PC is trying to add itself to a domain. If this works, the check passes, and so on and so on. The Watchdog service today is still built upon, so this might expand in the future, but I already think this is great to have in the Endpoint Manager portal. So with this in place, we had done the first step for the Windows 365 Cloud PC. We have created the on-premise network connection. So the second thing we'll have to do is to provision the cloud PCs. And this is also as easy as before. We can click on the provision policy tab. We create a policy, we give it a name. We select the on-premise network connection, which we've just created, select our image that we want to use, and assign an Azure AD group. So with the images, which images you can select, you can choose, of course. We have some PC gallery images available for you, and I highly recommend to use this one. Get away from the golden images because I don't like to create the golden image, and I think nobody does here in this group as well. And just deploy all your applications with the Endpoint Manager or the Intune portal. This way, you can just always select the gallery images, push the applications which are required, and the Cloud PC is always up to date and ready to go. We have two types of images available. We have the pre-installed M365 apps images or the VDI OS optimizations, which is just created for better performance on virtualization environments. And if you do want to be stubborn, no problem, you can add your own custom image. And you can see that we also have the image version available, which makes it easy for you to use. Microsoft provides global replication of a custom image to any data center. But to keep in mind, to use this image, to use your custom image, you will have to create an Azure Mesh image in the same resource group and region as your on-premise network connection. So this is a requirement in order to use your own custom image. And this is, like I said before, maybe your golden image, but I do not recommend this way of working. So let's take a look at the create provisioning policy video here. So first of all, we give the policy a name. There we go. We select the on-premise network connection, which we've created in the previous step. We select the image type. As I said before, gallery image or custom. We'll go for the gallery image here. And we'll select the M365 apps and teams image. The second part being the assignment, where we just add the Azure AD group, which is hybrid, as said before. And in my case, it's the finance group I think I used here. Yes. So select this one, click next, and your Windows 365 deployment is complete. That's the only thing you'll have to do for a Windows 365 deployment to be completed and to be ready to use. We'll see an example of the Windows 365 Cloud PC at the end of this demo where everything comes together. But does anybody have some questions so far? Nope. All right. Then we'll continue. So the third part in this demo is really where we deliver the laptop or the device to our end user, and where we combine Windows 365 and conditional access with continuous access evaluation all into one. And we're going to enroll Windows 11 here without a password. And this was something mentioned before. We're going to use a temporary access pass to enable this. So first of all, create a temporary access pass or code. We want to enable the MFA for the user, or the user should enable his MFA login on a smartphone. I have a small demo of that as well. Then we'll enroll the device using MFA only. No passwords will be shared whatsoever. And at the end, we'll have an enrolled device which without a password, which also have the Windows 365 PC on it, combined with conditional access. So first of all, I want to show, well, it's been shown before, but I'm just going to show it anyway. Let me just change my screen again. I'll show you where this is in the portal. There we go. And we're back at our Azure AD environment. These can be discarded. So let's go to Azure Active Directory. And first of all, we have to enable this for our users, the temporary access pass. So we'll go to security, and then we have authentication methods. And you see here we have the temporary access pass, which is still in preview. You should be able to switch to modern way of your modern view here, which I already did, but we can continue here by using the temporary access path. If we click on this, we can obviously activate it for some users or selected users or all users. In my case, this has already been allowed in my organization. And if you create your user, you go back to your Azure Active Directory, go to your users. And for instance, I will be using the hybrid Michiel account here. We can go to authentication methods again, and we can add an authentication method. But as you can see here, I did this before. Mine is expired a long time ago. So I maybe want to add a new one. And we'll choose the temporary access pass. And here you see some options, which is shown before in this session. We can set the activation duration for our temporary access pass up to 8 hours here. And you can also select the one-time use of the temporary access pass. Be careful with this one. Of course, if you deliver this to your end user and, for instance, they log in, they close their window and they want to log in again, well, this will not be available anymore. So be careful with using this setting here. Maybe I'll show just with 3 hours, and we'll be adding this one. So copy this one. This should be delivered to your end user, and your MFA should be enabled through here. So let me show you just a small video where we enable the MFA for the user and the MFA login. So I'm just going to switch back again to my presentation. There we go. And let's continue here. So this is what I've shown you, the administration prep. I'll just continue with the user enabling MFA. So he should get a guide on how to do this, of course, and get the URL and the temporary access pass. So the end user in this case goes to the My Security website. My account is called Hybrid Michiel, and I'm just going to log in with my demo tenant. And you see enter temporary access pass, which we delivered. We did not deliver any password so far, which is great. We're not going to deliver a password anyway. So the user is now enabling MFA with the temporary access pass. So everybody, I hope, has seen this before. Otherwise, do something about it, I would say. But all right, so you see my phone. We're just going to add the account here, like we always do, work or school account, and scan the QR code. There we go. And the account has been added. And then, of course, we have to test it. And we want to allow this. And we're good to go normally. Notification approved. So the first step is done. Now do the second step. And the second step is to allow us to log in with MFA. So we have to click on logging in with through phone. And this is as easy as this. We will need a device registration and Azure AD. So we're just going to do this register device. And this is what I was talking about. It could be that they have multiple prompts for the temporary access pass. If you did it one time, well, we'll be stuck here. So again, be careful with that one. So we're logging in, and it will now register the device in our Azure AD so that it can be used for logging into applications. Let it load a little bit here, and then, okay, then we want to register it. There we go. Give it a second. At this point, it's registering the device to Azure AD so that it can be used for logging in to our Windows 11 PC. And it should be almost be ready. one more loading page. And we're good to go. So now we did the second step. The user has enabled MFA on his device, and he can or she can log in with the MFA, the Authenticator app into Windows 11. So then we're at the third part, and this is where we'll be using Windows Autopilot. So at this stage, the laptop has been, or the device has been delivered to the end user. The end user already has the MFA enabled. This view is also secured with conditional access. So if the user is in a location that we don't trust, he will receive this, the classical view of you're not allowed to use this application at this stage. But for this demo, of course, our end user in a safe network, so he or she is good to go and can enroll the device using Windows Autopilot. As you can see, we have our customized out-of-the-box experience where we see the name of the company or the logo, whatever you want. So there we have my account. I logged in and we get a new notification to log in with MFA. We open the Authenticator app, we fill in the number we see, and we say, yes, it's me. And we're good to go. So now the user has starting to enroll his device, still hasn't used the password at this stage. So I obviously speed this up, that we don't have to wait. This might take a few minutes, as we all know, as we all seen before. But at this stage, the device gets enrolled, the profile has created, and so on and so on. So now we're logged into our Windows device, and immediately it prompts for Windows Hello for Business. In my case, I was using a virtual machine in Azure to demonstrate, and yeah, the Windows Hello for Business will be a PIN code. But if you have, for instance, a Surface device, you can get facial recognition or fingerprint on the Surface Go. This is, of course, Windows Hello for Business. But yeah, a virtual machine with the facial recognition, it will be a PIN code in my case. So let's continue by clicking OK here. And again, we'll be prompted to log in. We'll allow this, of course. And yes, of course, allow my organization. It will be preparing this. We can set up a PIN code. There we go. And just click OK. And just let it load a little while. So at this stage, we have allowed the user to log in without sharing a password, with multi-factor authentication, and with conditional access on a Windows 11 PC. So this is a great way of working, right? You'll see, of course, I have the machine ready for you just to demonstrate in a second. At this stage, of course, Intune will be installing all required applications, all required security, and everything we need on the end user device. So before I want to say thank you, of course, I want to share one other screen here. And this will be the virtual machine that I've created for this demo. And there we will see the end result of our settings and our application push and our Intune. So let me just continue here. I hope I can select the Hyper-V host. This should be available, viewable for everyone. I hope it is the case. So this is the device we've enrolled in the demo before. And you can see here that, okay, first thing we done, if he wants to open, be patient. It's a remote desktop session on a virtual machine, and we'll see again later on with remote desktop session in here that might get a little bit complicated to view. But okay, we can see here that has been BitLocker enabled, so Intune did this part and did the required security feature on my endpoint. But we can also see some other things, and this is quite nice to show as well. These ones we see here, for instance. These are remote apps from Azure Virtual Desktop. These are also pushed immediately to the endpoint or to the end user device. And just by clicking, we can obviously open the remote session to our application. And this is a secure way for enabling users to, of course, the demo gods are with me here. I want to open a session. I'm just going to try it again. But this is a secure way for enabling your users to connect to on-premise applications, for instance, or to classical applications which are hosted in Azure or your on-premise environment. If you connect your VNet from your Azure Virtual Desktop, you're good to go and you will be able to connect to your applications. And at this stage, no VPN is required on our endpoint, right? Because we have secured our end user device with MFA and conditional access. And in the background, we're connecting with the remote app to our applications which are required to work, for instance. So I opened the super sexy app Quick Assist, as you can see here. Nothing much to show, but yeah, you get the principle. It can be any app you want, of course. So we can use Azure Virtual Desktop to do this, and you can push this as well to the start menu so that when the users log in, all settings are immediately available to him. And next to that, we can also, of course, which we want to show, I'm just going to close this one for a second. Yep, it's getting complicated, all these remote desktop sessions. So let me just open remote desktop here, the application. And what we also see, we see our remote apps, which are published to Azure Virtual Desktop, but we also see our cloud PC. And this is the Windows 365 PC, which is available to our use, and this is also immediately pushed. I know in my demo, there are different user accounts because of my demo tenants, I have to combine. It should ideally be the same account. But we can provide the Windows 360 Cloud PC immediately to the end user. And this, as I said before, can, for instance, you can deliver a Surface Go, for instance, a cheap device or cheaper device, and provide a strong cloud PC using Windows 365. So let me open that for you 1 second. So it will be connecting to the Windows 365 Cloud PC. I'm just gonna minimize it in the meantime and see if I can get the credentials required for logging into my Cloud PC. So let's go back. So now it prompts really to log into my Windows 365 Cloud PC. The first thing was to log in online, and now we're actually logging into the device itself. So let me paste my password. And we'll go ahead and connect. And this is nothing special, right? I know it's still a Windows 10 PC. I'm sorry for that. It's not really the newest environment to show you, but you get the point. This is the Windows 365 Cloud PC. And of course, it's a full computer like you would have with you using your current PC at this stage. Of course, this is all without a password, and the user can use all this one if we have the same user account. I should not fill in the password, which we done just a second ago. But one thing I can show you on the Windows 365 Cloud PC, which is nice to show, except this is just a regular PC, is maybe the speed test. Because you're connecting to a remote desktop or to a remote computer somewhere in a Microsoft data center, you will be using the power of Microsoft Data Center online, of course. And as you can see here, we have 3000 megabits per second on your Cloud PC. Download, and I think even upload will be more if I'm not mistaken. Yep, that's right. So if somebody on his end user device now gets the same speed, I'll buy him a bottle of champagne or something, but I think it's hard to get. So this makes sure that you have the best connection available to you in the Microsoft Data Center, and that you can use the Windows 365 Cloud PC at its fullest. So it was maybe some technologies together, but what we have done for our end user here was just to enable him to use MFA, enable the Cloud PC for him with the 2 easy steps, which is creating the on-premise network connection and provisioning the Cloud PC. The last step was, of course, to send the device to our end user, where we can log into this device using MFA and conditional access. And once he done that, he got everything he need. He got a secure device, he got all local applications, he got the Windows 365 cloud PC, and he got the Azure Virtual Desktop remote applications in place. So this was basically it for my session. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please let me know or do ask. I'm happy to answer them for you.